Chapter 20 The Lucky Ones. Life in the displaced persons camp settled into a routine. Each morning we children would gather together in a makeshift classroom to be taught Ukrainian and English spelling and grammar, arithmetic, history, geography. For so long I had pretended to be older than I was, and it was difficult for me to be clustered together with the other 12-year-olds. Many of these children had lived through conditions as difficult as my own, but a few had managed to stay with a parent or grandparent throughout the war. These few lucky ones seemed so separate and special. Did I dare admit how jealous I was of them? I knew it wasn't fair of me to feel that way, but every time I looked at the lucky ones, I felt unbearably lonely. I was grateful to be with Luca, but I had to find Larissa, and it wasn't just to ensure that she was safe. I needed to find her for my own sake. We were sisters after all. We shared the same family, childhood, even thoughts. With her gone, half of me was gone as well. My teacher was a former high school instructor from Lviv named Pani Zemluk, and she was demanding and precise in her expectations. Often, after all the other children had gone off to play, I would stay at my spot on the bench made from a plank of wood and 2 emptied paint tins, my workbook open on my knees. I was determined to master my schoolwork, especially the English language. It was such a gift to finally be given the opportunity to learn. Pani Zemluk would come and sit beside me, correcting my errors and giving me extra exercises when I wanted them. And we would talk. I confided to her my hopes and dreams of fighting Larissa. I confessed to her what I did in the war. I wept on her shoulder as I admitted to accepting the candy from that Nazi woman and how my selfishness had destroyed my family. "It's not your fault," she said. "What starving child would say no to a sweet?" Those women were trained to capture children. Pani Zemluk advised me to change my identity. You cannot let people know that you're from that place. That's in the Soviet part of Ukraine, and everyone from there is being sent back to the Soviet Union. But I want to go home. Your home no longer exists. Besides, you are a laborer for the Nazis. If you go back to the Soviet Union, you will be punished for that. I rubbed the tears away with the back of my hand and stared at her. "That makes no sense," I said. "I was a prisoner of the Nazis." "No matter. You will be punished as a Nazi." "They already know my true identity at the hospital," I told her. "Besides, if I change who I am, how can I ever find my sister?" Pani Zemluk brushed away a stray hair from my brow and looked me in the eye. "Your first job is to save yourself, Lida. You have been very lucky so far, but if you don't stay free, you and your sister can never hope to be reunited." Her words shattered me. Luca was in the spiraling lineup of refugees at lunchtime. Once we each got a bowl brimming with hot pea soup and a handful of crackers, we walked down the path to the makeshift church. It was cool there and quiet at midday. We sat side by side on the ground, leaning against the wall. I filled my spoon with thick soup and blew on it, waiting for it to cool down just a bit. I didn't actually like the taste of pea soup. We'd been served it more than any other food, but it filled my stomach and staved off the gnawing hunger that seemed always to be present. I swallowed down the first spoonful. Then, as I waited for the next to cool, I watched Luca. He shoveled down the soup, piping hot. The look on his face was one of urgency, as if he was afraid that someone would take the food away from him if he didn't consume every last speck instantly. "Have you heard anything about your mother?" I asked him. He shook his head and continued eating. I swallowed down another spoonful of soup. Then I stared at my bowl. I told Luca about what Pani Zemluk had said. Luca didn't answer right away. He was too involved with licking every last bit of soup from the bottom of his bowl. When he was finished, he methodically ate his crackers, chewing each one with gusto. Once he swallowed down the last cracker, he turned to me and said, "I think she is wrong." His words confused me. "So you think we should go back to the Soviet Union?" "I haven't heard anything about my mother," said Luca, "but this morning some Red Army soldiers came into my classroom and asked to speak to me." His words made my heart pound. What did they want? "They told me that my father is alive and that he is living in Kyiv. He has got his own pharmacy." "That is wonderful, Luca. They are coming back tomorrow morning. They will take me home." His words were like a stone in my heart. I had no idea if I would ever find Larissa, but Luca was right here, with me. He was the brother of my heart. How could I bear to lose him yet again? Was I destined to be all alone? I didn't say anything. I stared at the soup in my bowl, but suddenly I had no appetite. Luca's fingers gently brushed a tear away from my cheek. "You could come with me," he said. Should I? Could I? But if I went back to the Soviet Union and Larissa was living somewhere here in Germany, how would I ever find her? It was all too overwhelming. There was too much to think about. "I'm leaving tomorrow morning, no matter what," said Luca. "Come and say goodbye to me, or come and join me. Your choice."